So that is exactly why the U.S. proposed regulations, where they wanted to ban Americans from coming to Xinjiang. I mean, the place that's...
It's just hilarious.
Yeah, the place that's apparently committing all of these atrocities are saying, come, take a look. And the people who want you to believe that there are atrocities happening here are saying, no, don't go take a look for yourself. Just
don't
trust
go.
Us. Trust us, bro.
Hey you guys, welcome back to Reports on China. I'm here with a special guest. We're in Xinjiang, by the way. This is Daniel Dumbrill, you guys obviously recognize.
Hey guys.
How's it going, Daniel?
Yeah, pretty good.
So
cold,
where are we?
We are in Urumqi.
Urumqi, the capital.
Xinjiang, the capital of Xinjiang. It's good to be here. This is my sixth time in Xinjiang. It's nice to be here in the snow. It kind of makes me a little bit nostalgic for Canada. You remember all of your winter lessons, wear waterproof shoes, wear thermal undies, don't eat yellow snow. All of the most important lessons are suddenly coming back to me, but it's good to be here.
I thought it would be pretty cool if you lived here in Urumqi because you could actually have a white Christmas.
Yeah, it would be here, but I had enough of that in Canada, to be honest.
Well, we never had it in New Zealand. Like, in New Zealand, Christmas is in summertime.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, so we have barbecues and stuff, and so white Christmas sounds pretty awesome. But anyway, what are we here for in Xinjiang this time?
So we're here for a conference that's been put on to discuss labor issues in Xinjiang, particularly because of all of the accusations of forced labor and the impacts it's had on the local economy. So that's basically the main reason we're here.
Yeah, and what is the issue? Like, we have obviously the Uyghur forced labor, what is it called? Forced Labor Prevention Act from the US, which they enacted in 2022, which basically says that anyone in Xinjiang producing or working or doing any kind of labor is necessarily forced labor. Yeah. Do you think that's fair? Obviously not.
No, I mean, you know what? I've like I said, I've been here many times before. I've got many friends in Xinjiang. Yeah. And the narrative is just, I mean, it's completely false. And, you know, what I'm here to do is kind of to see how people are responding to it, and I've got a presentation that I'll be doing too.
I'm looking forward to that.
It talks a little bit about Western media and how exactly they spin this narrative using the Texas sharpshooter fallacy and different things. I won't get into all the details of the presentation, but I'm here to do the presentation. They've got some tours going on also of factories and things like that.
And I want to talk about that, Daniel, because obviously they're taking us to these factories, which is cool. I know you said that for you, I mean, it's good to see inside the factories as well, but I'm left with the feeling that, these are arranged tours, so we're not really going to convince anybody with these tours we go to because they're pre-arranged, and that's not to say there's any slave labor or forced labor. How do you think we can get around that problem?
Well, I mean, it's really difficult to convince people in that way too. I mean, you invite people, there's people all over the world coming to this conference.
Yes.
And I'm of the same opinion. I don't think it's going to convince anybody. Right. If they believe that there's forced labor going on, it's not really going to do anything. But that's kind of been interesting for me too, seeing their reaction to it and also sitting down with some of these people from foreign countries who kind of believe some of these claims. Yeah,
we've had some really interesting conversations. Yeah. So you guys, I just want to bump in before you talk about the conversations. Obviously, Daniel and I are here who are, I mean, you could say, some people would say pro-China, I would say pro-truth. But there's also a lot of people that they've got in to take part in this event that are also giving presentations and coming along on the tours, who are really, you could call them anti-China.
Right.
Yeah.
You could, yeah. They believe a lot of the stuff. And then when you walk them through it, though, and you take them through the logical steps of the things they believe and the evidence, the so-called evidence that's behind it, some of them are actually open-minded to say, oh, okay. So it's actually interesting. The factory tours are doing absolutely nothing but having conversations with, CCP shills.
People. I'm just going to show them around as we talk.
They'll call us, is actually useful. And so hopefully when I do my presentation, I can explain how some of the companies here should be responding to this propaganda. Because at the end of the day, there are ordinary people who are being impacted by this. Ordinary Uyghurs who are having their economic opportunities taken away from them. There's a lot of Uyghurs who own their own plot of land, and they have cotton on it, particularly in the south, and they harvest it themselves and they sell it themselves, and now their cotton is being sanctioned. I mean, the U.S. knows exactly what they're doing when it comes to this. They've admitted it before in other places where, sanctions are designed to push up unemployment and make the situation
unstable.
Civil unrest,
Yeah, so that's what the Chinese government said, and especially in the so-called leaked Xinjiang police files, which Adrian Zenz used to argue there was slave labour here. Basically, I read all the texts he used as an argument to say there is forced labour here, and it was the complete opposite. It's just how he interprets it. I think China really cares about removing that possibility for social unrest that comes from unemployment. The young people sitting around doing nothing is dangerous.
What you'll also notice is a lot of these people like Adrian Zenz and some others, they won't actually say there is forced labor.
No.
They keep the language obscure so that when finally it is revealed, okay, it was all BS, they can say,
cover their ass.
Actually go back and look at I never said
that
there was forced labor.
So what do they say? Something like the chances or the risk?
The risk of forced labor is systemic and endemic, and this is the exact words that Adrian Zenz used on one of the CBC reports in Canada on Xinjiang tomatoes. But you kind of get the same thing over and over again.
So Daniel, we're outside quite a big mall here in Urumqi. I feel like this might be new to some people who are watching. Like you wouldn't imagine, based on how the US talks about China or Xinjiang in general.
We got our Canadian Tim Hortons over here.
Tim Hortons, that it would be like this, just a normal place.
Yeah.
Should we go in?
Yeah, let's walk through the mall. I'm freezing out here, so. Oh, I'm running out.
Oh yeah, we better switch sides with the mic. So we're heading into the mall here now. I'll turn this around.
You've got these big insulated.
Because it's so cold outside.
To keep the heat inside the mall.
And that's the problem with a place like this cold, a place that's this cold. You wear so much outside, and then when you come in, we'll switch sides. It's too hot.
Oh, the hotel is roasting. The hotel is absolutely roasting. I had to open the windows in the room to cool it down.
My windows are still open too.
Yeah. So, what have you thought so far, anyways, from what we've seen and the people we've talked to and things like that?
Well, I thought, for one, it was really interesting that there's so many people that are on this same group that we're joining that are quite anti-China. That was quite interesting for me. And also, I've been really interested in going to check out the factories. But of course, I want to check out factories that haven't been organised for the tour, I wish I could just rock on up. But of course, as is anywhere in the world, you can't just walk into a factory. But you have before, right?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of friends in the south and in Kashgar. I went in and I saw, and I heard from one of my Uyghur friends also how empowering these job opportunities were for women.
Right.
Because when extremism took over, and there were a lot of people that were following this more extreme interpretation of Islam, there were men who were kind of keeping their wives and daughters at home, not allowing them to go out, not allowing them to work, basically taking this really totally un-Uyghur approach to Islam.
Right.
And when women got into relationships where there was abuse involved and things like that, there was no escape for them.
Right.
And suddenly, when they, and also they relied economically on their husbands. So when they finally had these opportunities in these factories, it opened up options for these women. They weren't stuck anymore. And that was so important and so valuable. So when you think about the U.S. trying to disassemble and sanction any industry that Uyghurs are involved in,
right,
these are the kinds of people that are going to be affected, and it's really quite upsetting when you think about it. When you look at the people who are affected by this.
Just ordinary people, and that's one of the things. So people like ASPI, the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, and Adrian Zenz, with their movement, with their their research and their move to what they pretend is ending slave labour or forced labour here in Xinjiang. Yeah. What they're doing is actually introducing new human rights issues and not letting a normal rig of people work. So the UN, obviously, they say, the ability to work or the choice to work is a basic human right.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're creating human rights abuses.
No, it's true. And when you look at the people who are involved in this narrative, like, for example, Darren Byler, he will post for a video. Like, there was one time he posted a video of a Uyghur worker in a Skechers factory, kind of dancing on the production while he was on the production line, putting shoes into boxes or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And he said, look, it looks like Skechers has a forced labor problem. And he concluded this from no other reason than simply seeing a Uyghur that was working. To him, anytime you see a Uyghur working, automatically assumes forced labor. The other thing he did in that was he said that Skechers, you need to investigate. Well, Skechers did that.
And found nothing.
They went out, they investigated, they made unannounced factory visits, and in the report they said, we found no evidence of forced labor. And what did Darren Byler do? He never ever acknowledged that document, ever. Even if he didn't believe it, he should have said, you know what, Skechers listened to me, they did an investigation, but I don't believe it for A, B, C, D reasons.
Right, but of course not.
But no, because it had it concluded what he wanted, he would have mentioned it. The other thing that, for example, the New York Times did was the New York Times used to make all of these accusations against Nike, Skechers, Volkswagen, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They also didn't acknowledge that Skechers did an investigation, but they know it exists. And the reason I know is because all future accusations, they dropped Skechers from the list of accused.
Okay.
So basically they knew that there was an investigation done. They're not going to mention them anymore, but they also will not mention to their audience the reason why they were dropped. And so it's kind of like the Texas sharpshooter fallacy, where they have a conclusion already that they want to make, and they curate evidence to support that and discard anything that doesn't support it. And so this is one of the reasons. That's going to be my presentation too, because to understand the reasons behind this aggression and how they accomplish it is essential in basically disseminating it and responding to it effectively.
And I want to talk really briefly about the US or the Washington Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act, because I read it again yesterday, and I think the basic idea is that they're saying any labor in all of Xinjiang is necessarily tainted by forced labor. So that means, really, if you take it by the word, everyone in this mall, and like you said, any Uyghur person, is forced labor.
Right, yeah, that's basically what they assume every single time. And it also has far-reaching consequences for Uyghurs who are working in the rest of China. Because in the rest of China, what happens is factories don't dare hire them. Because all that it takes is one video of the factory where you see one Uyghur worker, and that's exactly what they're going to assume. They're going to say, and they're going to be caught up in a shitstorm that they don't want to be caught up in. So because
they're worried about the ramifications from the US. Yeah, so I've heard reports. The
option is that they just don't hire any at all, and that's once again taking away economic opportunities for
normal Uyghur people. And I've heard reports of Uyghur people outside of Xinjiang and other parts of China who were just let go because of because they're Uyghur and they're scared that the US or anyone will sanction them.
Do you want to go upstairs? We'll keep going up.
Sure, yeah. I'm just showing everyone the mall as we walk. Because I really do believe, and this sounds really cliched, this is probably new for a lot of people. Like, this is Xinjiang. Part of it, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I take for granted that people would look at this and be like, oh, wow, this is Xinjiang, because it's just like this.
Because if you just read Western media, you would think that that Xinjiang is some outback desert with slaves everywhere and people in jail.
No, exactly.
But if you look, it's just like, this is better than malls back in my hometown in New Zealand.
Right.
Look at this, it's beautiful. And even though it's minus 10 or something outside, it's just a beautiful blue sky.
Right. Yeah, no, it's great. Xinjiang is huge. Up north you get, there's a really famous area called Hemu, where this wooden village. A lot of people love to go there. There's a massive ski resort that opened there. I think it's the biggest in Asia now.
Wow.
And the great thing about skiing in Xinjiang, too, is that because of the weather is so dry, you get really nice
powdery
snow.
Yeah, I don't know anything about snowing, but I know about skiing, but I know powdery snow is like the best.
Yeah.
If it's wet, it's just mushy.
Yeah. We get a lot of that in Canada, in Ontario. Mushy snow that you're skiing and snowboarding on.
It's not fun. Hey, so I want to ask you, Daniel, if you could sit down with somebody who was in charge of, I don't know, media in China or fighting back against the US with what they're doing in terms of sanctions and stuff in Xinjiang, what advice would you give?
I would say to tell more authentic stories. When the terrorism issue happened in China, it was an incredibly serious issue that would have been extremely difficult to solve. I'm glad that I wasn't in charge of figuring out how to solve something like that.
Yes.
There probably is no perfect way to do that. So to pretend like everything is perfect and everything was perfect with their implementation, I think that undermines their credibility.
Yeah.
So for example, when Uyghur people were traveling in the rest of China, during that period of time, they faced more scrutiny.
More scrutiny.
They landed in an airport, okay, they checked their documents, where are you going, more questions.
Right.
I mean, that's something that happened. And so if you tell stories in balance, you'll have a more authentic message to your audience.
Right.
But I understand, and that also is something quite normal too, because after 9/11, I also found myself when I was traveling through the U.S. quite often,
profiled.
Sir, take your shoes off. It's like, I wonder what's different about me that
Right.
you got to stop me.
Because it's human nature. I mean, it's bad, but it's human nature.
I mean, yeah, there's profiling that happened. But I will also say that I understand that there's an additional challenge here that other countries don't have.
Right.
For example, you can call George Bush a war criminal all day long, and nothing will ever happen to him. Here we go. We got a train passing us here, and nothing will ever happen to him. But here in China, there are forces that are always looking for any possible story or angle to exploit.
Right.
So if you tell the wrong story, where it's like, okay, yeah, we messed up here. Of course, it's not genocide. It's not what they're talking about. It's not forced labor.
Right.
But there is an angle in which it could be exploited by
the Western
NGOs and things like that are trying to create unrest here. They've got to be cautious about that. So I understand it's a little bit of a difficult situation. If I was an ordinary journalist here, and I did that, and all of a sudden it blew up.
Right.
Because it was used against China in such a way.
It's not a good look.
Misconstrued. Well, and then you've got to take personal accountability for
Right.
that.
So I think, like you said yesterday, there's a lot of, a lot of people in the media that don't want to push forward and make the first step to trying to fight back, I guess you could call it.
Right. I could understand that, yeah. And so in the absence of that, having people come here themselves is probably the best thing to do. If somebody really wants to understand what's happening, come here by yourself. Don't come on any of these kinds of seminars or anything like that that's happening here. Come by yourself and just talk to people. And I think the U.S. knows that. I think they know that, okay, we're selling this huge story.
That Xinjiang's this dirty, dangerous, dystopian...
Yeah, and all it takes is for people to go to Xinjiang and
themselves.
all of a sudden it falls apart.
Right.
So that is exactly why the U.S. proposed regulations, where they wanted to ban Americans from coming to Xinjiang. I mean, the place that's...
It's just hilarious.
Yeah, the place that's apparently committing all of these atrocities are saying, come, take a look. And the people who want you to believe that there are atrocities happening here are saying, no, don't go take a look for yourself. Just
don't
trust
go.
Us. Trust us, bro. It's like...
And that's the funny thing, because, Li Jingjing from CG10 is here as well.
Right.
Yesterday, the three of us posted a selfie on Twitter, and I saw her comments. People were like, Goebbels, or whatever his name is, didn't have enough of people like you. You're really disgusting. Honestly, you guys, come here and see for yourself. There's no way we would be saying all this stuff if there was anything like slave labor or forced labor, not to mention genocide going on here. It's just absolutely
and that's
hilarious.
That's one of the other reasons I obviously I came for personal reasons too, travel, a vacation, and all that kind of stuff. But it's important to do that. I mean,
go look even for us.
Yeah, because it's like, okay, it's great. We can obviously, without coming here, we can say that the evidence doesn't stack up.
Right.
What they're using as evidence is basically not sufficient to make the claims that they're making.
Right.
We can say that without coming here. But still, from a due diligence point of view, from people like us who are so vocal about this, it still is important to come here and just check for ourselves what's going on.
Right.
And if all of a sudden we were like, oh, hold on a second, there's some truth behind that. So we got some followers here.
Hello.
So if there was some truth behind that, be like, all right, okay, this is not right. But this is... The facts are here, and they're easy for anybody to see who comes here and wants to see for themselves.
Exactly.
It's easy as that.
So I reckon we'll leave it at that. You guys, come to Xinjiang if you've never been before.
我是加拿大的，他是
新西兰的啊。
你们是本地人吗？哦，
乌鲁木齐的。哦。
从哪里来的？
他住在重庆，我住在上海。
是。
你们是哪国人？
新西兰的，加拿大的。
对。加拿大你知道吗？
去过吗？
去过。
你去过啊？厉害。OK。
我忘记用那个维吾尔语说那个 hello 是怎么说的。
你好。
不是。怎么说？
对。
Yakshimus。哦，我不会。
我上一次学过了，我忘了。
OK， 拜拜。 And bye-bye to you guys as well. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on. And we've still got a few days here, so you might see some more videos, some funny videos coming up maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Okay.
Okay, see you guys later.
Cheers.
Bye-bye.